Welcome everyone. Today we're scouting a field of dry edible beans, and we are starting to see rust develop. Dry bean rust often shows after canopy closure, as early as mid to late July, with small, discrete, cinnamon brown pustules, usually on the lower leaves first. Sometimes the pustules have a narrow golden or chlorotic halo. They are hard to see in this field, which is typical when we first see rust. Do you see any? And notice differences between the upper and undersides of the leaves. When dry bean rust first appears, we usually find it in hot spots. These hot spots are usually small, maybe only 5 to 10 feet in diameter, and appear randomly in a field. Hot spots are most likely to occur where the pathogen was introduced or survived the winter, and is in an area where leaves stay wet for longer periods of time. Because of that, you're more likely to find a hot spot in an area prone to fog or long dews, like along a shelter belt or by a slough, especially if it was close to a field that had rust last year. As you are looking for hot spots, keep in mind that leaves in the lower or middle canopy are protected from the wind and the sun, and therefore they stay wet longer, so rust will nearly always occur in the middle or lower canopy first. Take a look to see some images of us walking into a hot spot, first from about 10 feet away, then about 5, and then basically standing over the hot spot. As plants mature and the growing season nears its end, the dusty cinnamon brown pustules will become hard and turn black. Sometimes you will see both brown and black spores on the same leaf. If you look closely, you can see the pustules rip open the leaves, exposing the spores. Dry bean rust epidemics can explode very quickly, and when the disease gets severe, leaves turn brown, curl, wilt, they'll fall off, and even pods can be infected. No matter where pustules occur, whether they are cinnamon brown or black colored, or how severe the epidemic is, the pustules always remain very small. The combination of pustule size, color, and morphology differentiate rust from other dry bean diseases. Rust is an economically important disease, and if it is not managed, high yield loss can occur. However, yield loss doesn't occur every year, and where and when rust occurs can be unpredictable. This makes scouting for the disease very important. Yield loss is also unpredictable and depends heavily on how early in the season the disease occurs, how favorable the environmental conditions are for spread, and whether the grower is using any management tools such as genetic resistance or fungicides. While the dry bean rust pathogen has a complicated life cycle with 5 spore stages, we are only going to see 2 of those spore stages when scouting: the cinnamon brown pustules with Uridinea spores and the black pustules with Teleospores. And really, we are only worried about the cinnamon brown spores. Once you see them, the spores will cause new infections every 7 to 14 days. When the environment is favorable, moderate temperatures, heavy dews, lots of fog, an epidemic can explode. Even though we're really only worried about the cinnamon brown spores when scouting, the complex life cycle is the reason rust is so unpredictable. The pathogen has sexual and asexual reproduction. It can adapt quickly to overcome resistance genes in our varieties. There have been multiple times in North Dakota where rust had been managed very well by resistant varieties for years until in one season the pathogen adapted, spread, and caused yield loss. Unlike rust diseases that occur on other crops, like wheat, the dry bean rust pathogen will survive a North Dakota winter. When that happens, the early onset of the disease makes an epidemic and high levels of yield loss much more likely. Selection of a resistant variety is an excellent management option. Just keep in mind that multiple races of the pathogen exist and they change over time, so no variety should be considered 100% safe. Fungicides can provide effective management of rust when needed. However, it is critical to scout for rust before you consider an application. Rust will not show up every year or in every field, and you don't want to spend money on the inputs if you don't need it. NDSU plant pathologists have conducted fungicide evaluations on rust for many years. In general, triazole fungicides, so Frac 3 fungicides, and strobilurin fungicides, so Frac 11, are generally effective. Many mixtures that may include other groups like Frac 7 can also be effective. Fungicide availability changes over time, so it's always best to consult the most recent data if you're selecting a product.